Hey everyone, a couple weeks ago I got an email blast from CDNN down in Abilene, Texas, running a sale on, the usual random assortment of handguns and shotguns and whatnot. And this time around, one of those caught my eye, and you see it right here in the box. It's a Girsan, and typical blue box from them, hinge and whatnot, and with regular markings, scan bars and whatnot, but this is what they're calling a Bora Light. Now, most people know Girsan from their MC28s, their MC17s, but the most recent news or following that they've had is really in terms of this thing right here, which is the Girsan Regard, which is essentially a Beretta 92F clone with some enhancements and whatnot. So this is a great handgun. It's really, really good, nice and smooth, but we're not talking about this. I have this for comparison. We'll talk about this right here, which is a Bora Light. So picked it up today. They sent it out real quick, no issues right there. So figured that mainly due to the fact that there were no reviews on YouTube, at least none in English or none in any sort of detail, I would just throw this together pretty quickly. Nothing fancy, just if anyone else is getting those adverts from CDNN and was wondering what the heck is that thing. So when I bought it, and from the point that I purchased it, and they shipped it out a couple days, and as of today, these are going for $399.99 US, and when I bought it, it was $50 less, so $349. So in the COVID or soon to be post-COVID environment, that's pretty good. I know in the past I'd been watching some of these Turkish guns and was a bit hesitant around even $229 or so, same from CDNN. And for whatever reason, I just didn't do it. Now this one came around and it caught my eye because it was pretty clearly an amalgamation between what looks to be Beretta functionality and a sealed slide. So I've heard reference of this looking like one of the Stoker Cougars, which is also a Beretta copy. But to me, it looks most like a Yamaha 82, made in Spain back in the day. So it's just as obscure as referring to this thing. So anyway, let's talk about this one. So here you see the markings on the slide. Hopefully it comes through. So it's marketed in the US as the Bora Light. Now on the slide, it's engraved Yavuz 16, serial number at the bottom. And on the other side, it has your typical Girsan branding, and then imported by European American Arms out of Cocoa, Florida. And down here you say made in Turkey. So magazine, very positive ejection, and it's pretty cool that these come in at 18 rounds. So while I was doing my research online, trying to figure out the specifications of this pistol and what it was comparable to, I didn't really find reference to magazine interchangeability, but there was some reference about it being compatible with Smith & Wesson 59 mags of all things. And what I was concluding as I was looking in the manual was that the MC39, which is another design from Girsan, which is this thing down here, looks more like a Daewoo DP51. That one uses the Smith & Wesson 59 mags. So, like I said, I brought my Girsan Regard out just for comparison, but we'll start off by looking at the mag. I will briefly just mention that the manual comes with some great pictures, and it's pretty well put together. What's interesting, however, is that it references a few different models. So it will talk about what we know as the Regard, which is an iteration of the Beretta series, and then it will talk about This MC, what was it, 17 or 39 at the beginning, and a couple others, but it does not reference this Bora specifically. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, at the end of the day, all this is, again, is a Beretta clone with a sealed slide and then some overall, angle changes. But overall, it looks like to be any one of these things. So whatever. All right, so I figured I'd start off by checking out the mag interchangeability, and I have not swapped these yet, so this is the first time. I don't, this is actually, I just got home with this thing, so I haven't even looked at it completely myself, but this is with the Regard mag. I fully expect it to work. Okay, snaps in great, ejects great, and then perfect, no issues. Retains open on an empty mag, very good. So, yep, the Regard magazines are in fact the exact same ones. So the last thing I'll say about the mags, and I've seen this referenced in a couple other videos talking about the Girsans, that these magazines are made by Metgar, which, if you know, is the world's largest, and actually I'd call it the main manufacturer of handgun magazines. They are OEM providers for many, many large brands, and they do a really good job. So if you're in the market for an aftermarket magazine or any that did not come specifically with your handgun, and you're able to get a Metgar, I suggest you get a Metgar. Of course, that may not apply if you're getting a Glock mag, because you might as well just get a Glock mag. But anything else, Metgar is pretty good. All right, so comparing it with the Girsan Regard, you can see the overall differences right there. And like I said, it's just mainly the angles that they went and adjusted. But you can tell just by looking at it, you have the rear top frame of the slide here, which is much more angular on the Bora Light, whereas it's more rounded and smoother on the Girsan. They both have finger rests carved into, or actually machined into the aluminum frame. But interestingly enough, if you notice, and I'm not sure if this really comes through, the angles are slightly different. So I have, I'd say, larger than your typical hand size, and I've always found the Beretta series to be, it fits comfortably, and the finger grooves on these actually place well with my fingers overall. I never went with the Glock Gen, what was it, Gen 3? Well, yeah, anything above the Gen 3, just because of those goofy finger grooves that they had. I never liked them because I like to move my fingers around, but this one actually fits pretty nice. And then when it comes to the Bora, my first impression picking it up was that the angle is different. So, and not only that, the grip is, I'd say it's a little bit smaller. And I'm not sure if that's factual or not. And again, I have not measured this at all, but it doesn't necessarily look like it's shorter, but there's something different about it. And I'm not sure what it is, but it feels different, and just my lower fingers don't quite grip it as well as the Girsan. So it may take a little bit getting used to. So if it is an angular thing, and then I have to modify my grip to naturally point, then that's one thing. I'll have to see if I am able to get acclimated to this overall feeling. It's not uncomfortable at all. It's just different, and it almost feels like I'm a little bit crowded down here. Whereas in the Regard, even though my finger does, my pinky does get to the bottom of the grip, it doesn't feel as crowded. So I'm not exactly sure why that feeling is, but yeah, that's that. Now, as you look forward, we can see that the general layout is, see how everything aligns. Your sight radius is shorter on the Bora Light. Yeah, clearly the barrel is slightly shorter, but as you start looking into the general configuration and controls, all that's the same. You got your same placement for the roll pin to keep the extractor in. You can see on the Bora Light the locking setup, which is, at least from this view, similar. It's the same conceptually as what would be a Beretta design, but at least on this side, similar. I do see that the Bora Light is either beefier. Yeah, for sure. So take a look at that. That's interesting. So I was not expecting to have to use a pointer of any sort, but take a look at the locking block. I think I said ejector before, but the locking block. Now the side on the walls here on the slide, the Bora Light is considerably thicker than it is on the Girsan Regard or 92 series, Taurus, and that stuff. So this is thicker. And if you are a Beretta hater, that there are plenty of, and I'm a bit of a reformed Beretta hater, you would probably think and say that this is a known point of weakness for these 92 series handguns, where these have been known to crack. I have known of at least one that I have known has cracked, and it was just re-welded by an armorer and thrown back out to the field, and it kept on going. But that's call it a known point of weakness. This does seem to be thicker, so we'll take it apart in a bit and see what that's about. Now again, in terms of controls, the placement is very, very comfortable, and it almost feels, it almost feels like the placement of the slide stop is slightly moved back. I can reach this very, very well. So it's very comfortable, and I can actuate the safety decocker and the slide very easily. No concern there. And that's one that, like in the 1911 series, it irks me a bit that I have to modify my grip slightly to reach it. This one is all good. So that's pretty sweet. So taking it apart, very much the same as any Beretta, like we talked about. And you can see the internals. So internals, I might as well take apart this Girsan. If we're going to do a proper comparison, why not, right? So your internals are identical in design. Nothing pops out. The slide stop is the same. Your trigger bar is the same, although the one on the Bora is a little larger. They just have not machined out as much material as they do for this Regard. And everything having to do with the sears and whatnot look to be identical. This one right here, which I believe is a magazine stop, is a little bit thinner on the Bora, but otherwise looks to be good to go. So what happens if I take the Regard slide and put it on the Bora? Well, that's interesting. Look at that. So now it almost looks like a Steyr GB, where, and actually this stands out a bit. I think you can actually see how the grip is just a scooch smaller, shorter than the Regard, because it looks kind of odd, doesn't it? So maybe this Bora is more analogous to a compact Regard or Beretta 92 than it is anything else. Just put in the magazine to see if this functions, so that's pretty cool. So it almost looks like I could go and just for giggles swap out the slides and, you know, try that out because it's working just fine. So let's see if we do the opposite. What happens if I put the Bora Light slide on the Regard? And that is, well, I guess now we can say as to be expected based on this one right here. So it fits in, and actually it looks pretty cool. Slightly longer grip, and it doesn't align perfectly at the back, so it sticks out a bit. And we've established that the rear of the slide is a bit more angular, straighter angle, so that's no big surprise. I would have to see if this is actually able to fire a cartridge. I have found in the past that, even if the slide does fit and seems to function, that is not a guarantee that the hammer will align with the firing pin. And I had that, I tried it out with a 92S actually, and a 96 slide. That did not, it fit begrudgingly, but it didn't quite work out. And that was one of the reasons, aside from the safety, the hammer safety. So anyway, that's a bit beside the point. So, all right, that's pretty cool. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, but at least you know that if for whatever reason you wanted to swap out the slides, apparently it looks like you can. So again, the internals on this thing are the same as the Girsan. So let's take out the barrel. So this is the first time I take this part apart as well. So it's a non-captive recoil spring, not unlike the Regard. And I prefer not to get my counter oily, but whatever. And then let's take a look at this barrel to see what's going on. So of course the locking lug system is the same. I do notice, however, that this one has, the angles are slightly different. So that's something to know. There's your rifling. And a little side note, I have a thing for watching Pakistani, cottage industry, handgun making, in the Dara region. And I always wonder, do those freaking things have rifling? Because these dudes are making them in the shop somewhere, and they're hammering these pieces together, and they look pretty slick, but I never see if they have rifling. So I'm always left curious. So yep, this one has some very nice deep grooves. So I'll take out the barrel out of the Regard. Again, non-captive recoil spring, regular Beretta design.
What do you call a dog magician? A labracadabrador.
Little bonus joke there from everyone's favorite companion. One thing to note between the Beretta series and these Regards specifically is that they did modify the angles of the locking blocks, whereas a Beretta, and let's see if you can see here, Berettas are almost 90 degrees here in the slide cuts. These have a slight angle to them. I would say probably closer to, 75 degrees perhaps, something like that. Now if you compare the two, the Regard and this gig right here, you can see those locking lugs are different. This one has some material ground down. This one does not. So I have a feeling that if I wanted to get real fancy, I could probably take out this locking lug and put it into the the other way around. I'd take out the locking lug out of the Bora and put it into the Regard barrel, and I could have, a cool looking extended barrel out of the Bora Light, but I don't really care to do that right now. So I think we've seen enough of the Regard, at least for the moment. Put it off to the side. Then we can look at the internals of the Bora Light. Actually, that's a Girsan. So, yep, this thing came with a healthy dose of oil. Not too much, though. I mean, it was leaking a bit, but not a big deal. And if you want to know what's common between these Turkish handguns and, if nothing else, the Girsans, is that they are smooth. I only regard my my Beretta Thunder 9 as equivalent in terms of just overall smoothness on the slide movement. These things are real smooth. Now, in terms of finish, they look to be the same. I believe it's some sort of Cerakote that they apply. So that looks to be consistent. For some reason, the Bora feels a little bit more phosphated than does the Regard, but I'm probably wrong on that. And then when you look into here, and let's see if I can get that. A little bit right there. So this is where you have the angles of the locking lug recesses that are machined into the slide. You can notice it's a steeper angle than on the Regard. So that goes in right there. Your recoil spring goes in that way, or like so, as Ian would say. And it comes right together. So yeah, pretty cool. Not sure I'll probably be able to take it out to the range probably next week and see what it's about. I did want to point out one thing here, that the muzzle of the barrel is definitely different. So this one has a crown, so it's actually nicely recessed, and the Regard, which is analogous to those Berettas, is not. It has like a convex shape, and this is concave. This one is rounded, and this is the opposite. So it's almost like these two would, how funny would it be if these two just lined up perfectly and one would fit into the other? Yeah, does it? Yeah. Kinda, sorta, it does. So it's almost like this part matches with the recess or the crown and the Bora Light. So, yeah, so anyway, your regular technical specification, I'm not gonna go through that. I haven't weighed it, I've done nothing in terms of barrel lengths and whatnot. I mean, that's why I brought this thing out, and if anyone knows a Beretta, you know the general lengths of these. So I can tell you from a trigger pull perspective, your typical long and heavy with a clean brake, and your regular very, very long reset. So rapid fire with this one, at least, well, in double action for that first one, it's going to be, like any other Beretta, but long and stiff. And in terms of single action, you got some take up, and then when it gets to the end, oh, that's surprisingly light. Yeah, okay, I did not expect that single action to be that light. I'd say it is definitely, for sure, it's lighter than the Girsan, without a doubt. And the Regard, it is, I don't know, just to throw out units, maybe half-pound lighter. I mean, it's significantly lighter on the single action, and on the double action, it's about the same, slightly longer. So I wonder if they reduced the trigger pull in the single action somehow by making the travel longer or something like that. I don't know. And then the hammers are Again, generally the same. The Bora is different in the machining side. So, yep, okay. So like I said, I had not seen a, tabletop review of these Bora Lights. At least not in English, and nothing in it that was too informative. And at least not for 2021. So just threw this together, and at just over 25 minutes, I think I will leave it at this. So hopefully this is of value to you, and if you're looking and considering these, I can tell you from having, I have a Girsan, one of the 1911 9mm versions, and then now these two things. These are great handguns, very well machined, very well finished, attractively priced. This one I bought as my last handgun for 2020, just before Gunbroker started charging tax, and I got it new from distributor for probably around the same price as this one. And then things got crazy for a few months, so everything was out of whack. I can tell you that these Regards are retailing for north of $450 at the moment, so something that's essentially the same, if not with some improvements, is definitely very attractive. I'll have to see how this grip length, now that I'll call it, I know the length is a little bit shorter on this one, how that pans out for my hand. But yeah, overall, I can say that the one thing that would always, I don't know, I never really got used, or never really liked or appreciated, was this whole exposed barrel on the Berettas. So for them to go and cover it up is, it makes it interesting to me. So anyway, all right, cool. Hope you enjoyed it. And again, if you're on the fence about getting one of these and you just want to get one just to see, it's going to work and it's going to be fine. So I say just go for it and, see where it leads you. So, all right, take it easy, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.